This week on the show, I'm joined by Will McCandless, a health coach whose path to healing has taken him from the mountains of Thailand to the jungles of the Amazon. As a patient, student, and practitioner, Will has consistently gone to the source, learning directly from the indigenous teachers and lineage keepers who hold these traditions. Today, he's built a successful practice around health coaching, biofeedback, qigong, combo, and more. In this episode, we get into his own health crisis and how it shaped the way he now guides others back to their bodies. It was really beautiful to listen to Will's story unfold and from, years as a child being told that his way was wrong and being pathologized for the way he was, to really following his heart and not being afraid to really go all in for his own health, but also in following his dreams. Highlights from this episode: how an ADHD diagnosis as a kid spiraled into being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and the years on medication that left him feeling lost and disconnected. Coming off his meds with herbs and landing a new diagnosis, bipolar with psychotic features, and what that taught him about the medical system. A tick bite on a California farm that sent his health into a freefall, and the long road through misdiagnosis before finally learning it was Lyme. The wild multi-country journey he made from Costa Rica to Spain during COVID lockdown just to be with his daughter, and what an ayahuasca ceremony revealed about his body's breakdown and how that became the foundation for the work he does today. If you would like to work with Will, you can find all of his information in the show notes. Welcome to the School of Whispers podcast. This is your host, Stephanie. I'm a licensed acupuncture physician and herbalist with a background in psychology, health sciences, and exercise physiology. Within my own spiritual awakening, I found myself learning pivotal lessons when I got myself to be in silence. Within that silence, the whispers came through. This is my sacred space of vulnerable storytelling where my guests and I share about the magic that comes from a life of following these whispers. I'm grateful you made it here, and I hope this show inspires you to live a life of following your own whispers. Let's get into the show. Okay, Will, welcome to the show. In our little pre-chat, I'm just really, really excited to have you here. I think everyone and their brother knows about detox. It's such a buzzword, but not many people really understand what it means. And what I really value from your experience is one, that you are patient zero in your life. That's how I treat myself in my work. And so, and then also you have this indigenous lens. You've gone to the source. You have traveled the world. Just so much of your story in the Chinese medicine, the Qigong. Yeah, we have a lot of parallels. So I'm really excited to pick your brain and yeah, to learn from you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So what I like to do is give everyone the space to introduce themselves, and if that means sharing credentials, sharing any sort of titles that feel relevant, and also most importantly, sharing what you stand for.
Mhm. Cool. So yeah, I'm Will McCandless. I help people with health coaching. I am a health coach. I also work with frequency medicine a lot. So I practice with biofeedback, also Rife, scalar, and different frequency modalities. I practice herbalism. So I study herbs, I study plants. Um, I work a lot with different animal medicines as well, combo, bee venom therapy. I've worked with scorpions. I've even tried snake venom before. Yeah, I've been on this journey of health and exploration and adventure and all these things, really kind of getting to the root of what it means to be a human being and helping others to also find out what that means for them so they can live happy and healthy lives in their purpose with an open heart. I stand really for sovereignty for a lot of people, for freedom. I think it's really important, especially in the health world, that people have autonomy and sovereignty. We're so used to going to doctors and then just telling us what to do, or going to watch the news and the news telling us what to think, or da 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 da. And I think it's really important that we all learn our inner truth and our inner voice, and then learn sovereignty and practice that as much as possible. I stand for protecting the earth and the earth's wisdom, and also indigenous wisdom, and incorporating that with modern wisdom side by side. And yeah, I stand for love. I stand for humanity and exploration.
Hell yeah to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So your story is on your website, but I would love to get a little bit more into that, specifically starting with your diagnosis of was ADHD or ADD.
Tomato, tomato,
Yeah.
ADHD. Yeah, we can start talking about that.
Yeah, because I'm actually I'm working right now at an ayahuasca retreat center, and somebody recently shared how he was medicated at a young
Mhm.
age, and it's really crazy to think how like children are being medicated and told that this whole experience that we label as ADD, ADHD is like a deep dysfunction. So yeah, if we could start there, because that sounds like it really that is what launched you into this exploration here.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a major kind of moment for me. I had dealt with some health things, before that when I was younger, but in terms of having ADHD, yeah, I mean, I was just I believe I was in high school at the time, and I just didn't like school. I didn't like sitting and listening to the teachers. I didn't like waking up early. I didn't like, following the schedule, and I was just pretty miserable. And, I was very active at the time. I loved to be outside, like skateboarding or riding my bike, hiking, like literally anything outside. And my family, they were pretty like by the book. So, I had a problem. They wanted to fix it. They asked other people, other parents in the community, what do you do? Your kid doesn't like school. Okay, you take him to the doctor and you see if he has ADHD. And if he does, then there's a pill for that.
Yeah, how did that how was that I have a lot of I know a lot of people growing up, as we all do, and yeah, they all have such a unique experience with that medication. What was that like for you?
It was pretty interesting. I mean, when I was actually taking the physical medication, was not a fan. I tried multiple, I had like 8 different medications, I think. They tried to put me on like the first Adderall, and I just felt super racy, angry, all these different things. And then I tried Concerta after that. That was very bizarre. The first time I took Concerta, it felt like I was on some sort of psychedelic almost, like time completely slowed down. I felt like completely detached from my body, and like I was having tracers almost with my hands, and um it felt like sounds were echoing. And I remember being in like my Spanish class at the time, and it, I should not have felt like that. That was not going to help me to study or to focus, feeling that way. Um, and yeah, it was very bizarre. I just kept seeing, this one doctor, and he just kept like, okay, let's try this. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. And yeah, it was kind of just a nightmare trying to go through all these different medications.
And so to fast forward a little bit, you mentioned that so you were on all these medications, and then you decided one day to stop. How old were you at that point?
Well, in terms of the ADHD medications, like after trying so many, I think the doctors actually just gave up because I tried like 6 or 7, and then my parents also were like, "This is crazy. We don't want to keep doing that." And then they were like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And they were like referred me to another psychologist, and then he, was like, "Oh, well, he just actually has anxiety and depression, so we're going to give him antidepressants and some anti-anxiety medications." And then I was on those for a number of years throughout high school. It wasn't until actually I started traveling after high school that I was like, okay, this is crazy, I need to get off this. I don't want to be on meds for life. And it was at that moment when I was like, I want to quit. Like, I don't want to be on these things.
One of my favorite speakers, Ram Dass, I love that he says that going to a therapist, psychotherapist, or psychiatrist, it's basically someone just rearranging the furniture in your head based on what they think, how they sh think it should look like. And it's just, I mean, it's a loop. It's a ticket to just being in the same cycle of bullshit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've never heard that quote, but I really, yeah, that I would totally agree. And then, throw some drugs in the mix and like, yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so then you decided to stop, and did you go straight into herbalism? What happened at that point?
Yeah, so I'd seen also luckily an acupuncturist at this time when I was going through high school. My mom had, heard of people trying acupuncture and she wanted to try it. She liked it, and then I started trying it. So I was starting herbal medicine at that time. But then when it came to me quitting the meds, my parents highly discouraged me from doing that. The doctors also highly discouraged me from doing that. I was like 17. I didn't know who to ask. So I started just doing a lot of research on my own. And I tried to find herbs. I learned about ashwagandha. I learned about, like CBD, of course, and some of these things. So I just started to try to, yeah, medicate, I guess, now with the herbs. But yeah, I just didn't really know who to ask.
Personally, I feel like because I was such a good kid, I was super obedient, stupidly obedient, and I was praised in school for that. And so the people I know in my life who were diagnosed with ADD and ADHD, what I really admire is you guys have, as souls, I feel like, have this common thread of questioning authority and
Hmm.
questioning the way that things should be because you're told, "Oh, you don't follow this way, so you're wrong." And it's kind of like something deep inside of you knows, am I really wrong? Am I really broken? Or is this just a system that doesn't work for me?
Yeah, I mean, this system is designed for very specific types of people, and humanity is an extremely broad range of an experience, and everyone you meet is someone different. That's why I don't really like the term neurodivergent or even neurotypical because I mean, saying that someone is neurotypical means that there's a normal type of person, but there is no normal type of person. There's a normal, I guess, to a Western sense, if you pay your taxes and you earn a certain income and you drive a car, but yeah, the whole system with medications and labels and these things, it's designed to kind of fit people into a box.
Hmm. So then after that point, so you're traveling and you find herbs and you're starting to find your stride, and then you had another big hit to your health while working on a farm, right?
That was like 8 or 9 years after
Oh, wow.
I got
Okay.
back. Yeah.
What happened in between then? Were you finding your career path within those 8 or 9 years?
So yeah, so after high school, it was basically looking like for me, I was not ready to go to college, and my parents found this gap year program that I could join, which was a structured program where I would be with another group or with a group of about 10 to 20 people, and we'd be going around and doing like work trade and seeing indigenous people learning from their wisdom, doing volunteer projects and cultural exchange, things like that. I did that right after high school, and then that was a huge shift for me. When I came back, that's when I started really, considering everything I was going through and with the medication and just in my own life. And I was like, okay, I saw such a different perspective from all these people that I met, staying in hostels, meeting different backpackers, meeting some indigenous people in New Zealand and Australia, and Fiji. And yeah, I just had like this bubble I'd lived in as a kid was like popped basically. And it really just made me want to expand more and live a very different life.
Hmm. That's so like props to your parents for catching that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the gap year programs are pretty big in Europe and the UK especially. It's actually a requirement in some colleges now that you do go and like travel after high school.
Honestly, as it should be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's fast forward because we're getting a little bit closer now to the sort of the niche that you're in within detox and all the other stuff. So you do this gap year program, you
Mhm.
come back home and you're
Mhm.
like the bubbles popped, you're like this is none of it is what I thought it was and there's a new way to live
Mhm.
and you're continuing to find yourself and then so at that point that's when you stopped taking the medication.
Correct. Yeah. So I had traveled a bunch. I did this gap year program, and then I actually did a bunch of travels after. I went to Central America for some time, went to like Colombia and Ecuador and spent like months down there. And then when I came home from all these travels, it was probably over a year of traveling. It felt like almost like I had reverse culture shock after seeing so many different parts of the world. And I was living with a family in Medellin, Colombia for a while, and just seeing so many different aspects of life. When I came back to California, to this town I'm from, it was just so insane to me how people were living and seeing how much suffering people had, with how much money they had at the same time. Like they had everything. They had the perfect American dream life and just suffering. And I really suffered coming back. And I could just see all the imbalance going on. And yeah, I was still taking medication at the time. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to just end this once and for all. And yeah, I took it upon myself to try and learn how to do that, but it was a big challenge for me. Learning how to take herbs on my own, I didn't find any practitioners that could help me at the time. And yeah, it was a big challenge for sure.
What was the hardest part about that and how did that launch you to the next phase in your life story?
It felt like at that time it was really up to me to detach from the current trajectory of society I grew up in and make a life for myself that I knew that I was going to enjoy with how much I had seen. I had seen so many people living such amazing lives, totally different from what I was told I needed to do growing up. And yeah, I just felt like I wanted to step into that more and I had to do what I could to kind of, exit the matrix, shall we say.
Yeah. So what did you do? And you're still so young at this point, which to me is just pretty incredible to have that level of agency while even still going through mental health struggles and having authorities in your life telling you what you should and shouldn't do.
Yeah, so when I came back, I was again trying to figure out what to do. And part of what I had studied when I was gone, seeing people doing, a lot of people were living in intentional communities, and farming was a big part of that. So I was really interested in like organic permaculture, organic farming. So I did actually try to go to school for some time for that in Santa Cruz. I moved down there and I was going deeper into studying plants and the herbs. And again, with this, I just wanted to quit the meds. And yeah, I tried to work myself down on the antidepressants and that was extremely challenging. Had a big, big, difficult time coming off of that.
Yeah, I had a family member had been on anti has been on antidepressants for like 2 decades. And an antidepressant that is recommended to be for short term, which is just so twisted that her psychiatrists keep on prescribing it. But anyway, she had to get a surgery, so she had to get off of it briefly, and she had an absolute break. It was really intense, and I think from that point on, this family member really believed that their natural state is really broken and fucked up. But it's really there's a chemical imbalance, there's a chemical reaction that's happening in the body here with these drugs, these hard drugs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they completely rewire your brain, and in many ways that scientists don't even know. I mean, there's never been long-term studies on even some of the most commonly prescribed medications. and definitely not with interactions of other medications or different substances like alcohol or cannabis or anything. And yeah, I had a quote unquote manic episode when I tried to quit the antidepressants, and it was a big challenge for me too because it was also blended with a lot of spiritual awakenings that I was having at the time. I had had such big experiences when I went down to Central and South America and also around the world where I just became opened up. You know, a lot of places in Central and South America, it's very normal that people talk about spirits, that everyone knows that they exist and it's a part of their daily life. And, you know, these abilities to communicate and see spirits are something that started opening up for me at this time. And, you know, in the family that I'm in and the therapist I had at the time, that was viewed as crazy. You know, so I was at the time diagnosed bipolar, manic, psychotic, because I naturally have these abilities. And luckily, at the same time, I was also experiencing a lot of guidance. There were people that were just naturally coming into my life. I was dating a woman, and her mother was actually a psychic by trade. And she gave me a very long reading at this time and gave me extremely valuable information and basically kind of gave me like a little boot camp training on how to navigate this world as an extremely sensitive person like myself with all of these abilities.
Wow. So looking back at your original diagnosis, like as a kid, do you feel like that was also going on with these spiritual gifts and these sensitivities, and just everyone around you was not sure what to make of it and trying to squash it?
Yeah, I'm a very unique individual. I have a very unique perception and perspective on life. And I actually do know that this is also why a lot of the ADHD phenomena has happened, because with the ADHD phenomena, it is allowed for there to be lots of testing on children. And that was actually something that was created by the United States government with their MK Ultra program. There's been a large effort to go and seek out psychic abilities in the general population. And they actually do that through ADHD testing and these specialized programs that are in public schools and other means. But in a lot of these schools, yeah, they are actually going and looking for people like me who have natural psychic abilities.
Thank you for bringing that up in such a grounded way. That's something I've been studying for years and been like, what the fuck? And I
Yeah.
haven't been sure how to bring it up to people without people being like, that's too much stuff. You need to pump the brakes. So, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, 100%. Give me one moment. There was something that came up with hearing you say that. I mean, I just really hope whoever's listening to this who has gone through a similar set of diagnosis feels really validated. Oh, I was going to say spiritual awakening is a traditional therapy psychology model's worst nightmare. I remember I was in therapy for a year or two and then I had my awakening. I remember at one point my therapist was like, "So what's going on with your support system right now?" Because yeah, I was having a lot of things come up within my spiritual awakening, a lot of memories of being abused as a kid. And I was like, I'm actually feeling a lot of support from my ancestors right now. And she
Mm.
gave me this look of like, oh, like shit, we lost Stephanie. And I think that was like our last session together.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they don't even know how to go there, you know? And it's really unfortunate because I know that there are so many people out there who have very powerful gifts, and because of their families or their doctors or their therapists, they get very afraid of themselves and they feel like they are crazy, you know, when they have gifts, when they have these huge blessings that they can use to their advantage. I've heard a really beautiful quote that the psychotic drowns in the same waters that the psychic swims. And the
Ooh.
key is learning how to swim and learning how to use these abilities. And also like, you know, hopefully in the future we can get to the point where it's also acceptable that people are swimming and not just drowning, you know, and then get shoved away in a room somewhere or a facility or heavily medicated or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, my hope and prayer for our Western world is that we can start to adopt models such as the in India that they have when somebody is having a quote unquote psychotic break, they see it as a spiritual experience. And a lot of cultures, they just see like how can we support this person and care for them and nurture them as they go through this process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you get this diagnosis, and yeah, what's your take from it? And you're getting this support from this psychic angel, and do you start believing in that diagnosis and living from that place?
Yeah, it created an extreme amount of confusion. I I was very lost. I mean, the meeting I had had with the psychic, we just had like one session and it was a very long session and she just gave me a lot of stuff that I needed to hear. But after that, yeah, I mean, I kind of just got swept up back into my family with the diagnosis and all this stuff and it was extremely confusing. And I was throughout this time, actually, you mentioned angels. I was actually directly communicating with lots of angels, and they were helping me. Like I actually had a lot of experiences where they were actually communicating to me very clearly. Archangel Gabriel was telling me that it was actually just going to be easier for me to tell my family that I was taking drugs, that they would understand that more than to tell them that I was communicating with angels and my ancestors, and I was seeing strange entities around, in my room or out in public and things like that. So yeah, there was a lot of confusion. I didn't really, I felt like I didn't really know how to navigate. It was really challenging, and I've actually heard that from certain shamanic cultures, like when a lot of children are like brought up in certain shamanic cultures and then initiated into shamanic lineages, they're kind of like thrown into the lion's den and they just have to figure it out. And that is pretty much how I felt. And then, yeah, at the same time, having all these diagnoses, oh no, this is all just in your head. No, this is bipolar. Here, take these medications. Yeah, it was a very confusing time for sure.
So did you take the medications?
I did. Yeah, I was really lost and really confused and going through a lot of pain. And, I was going to this therapist to get support and he was like, this is gonna help you. This is gonna make you feel better. This is gonna support you. So, after a while, I mean, I didn't see any other options. So yeah, I did end up taking medications for the bipolar for
So
a while.
when did you stop and when did you no longer believe this idea of what your experience truly was?
Well, I always like knew deep down, I had such powerful experiences when I was traveling and, interacting with people and spirits and, having these very divine encounters where people would just come to me and, give me messages or, seeing people that just could tell I had gifts and then would start talking to me and start channeling messages to me. And I'd had so many of these experiences where I knew that a lot of them were real. Like I knew that like I couldn't even make up some of these stories. They were so incredible. And I kind of just held on to that and I kind of fell back into place for a while. I was going to community college, I was living at home and just kind of going through the motions and gently starting to live like a quote unquote normal life again. And with that, I did start to actually feel better for some time. I started surfing more, going out with my friends more. And yeah, the depression was lifting. I wasn't having any of these really challenging experiences. My psychic abilities kind of turned down a lot with the medication, of course. And it wasn't actually until I started partying a lot more. I was going out to raves and I was really getting into touch with my inner nature just through dancing and being in that environment. And I actually went to Burning Man. And on the playa, I went to a breathwork session. And in that breathwork session, I had my first encounter with Archangel Gabriel again that had not happened for like many years. And it was after about 30 minutes of doing holographic breath work, I felt Archangel Gabriel come into my awareness and communicate to me like I'm not crazy. Like what I have experienced is real. And I was finally at a place in my life where I could come off all the medications and be safe, and that it was going to be okay, and that it was a time for me to just go out and do exactly what I wanted to do and have as much fun as possible.
And what was it that you wanted to do? Was it just to like be a kid, or was there something more there?
Well, at that moment, I was going to community college and I was just doing that to kind of get a degree. And, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but because I really did know what I wanted to do, and that was to live on a big farm with a bunch of people and grow weed and like have this experience of being in a community or like a tribe, like I had experienced in some other moments of my travel. So yeah, I did that. So I left Burning Man. I dropped out of college. I moved into my truck full time and I went up to Humboldt County and I started working in the cannabis industry.
So funny. I had the thought when you said you went to Burning Man, and after you kind of fell into line, you used the word I fell into place again where they wanted you to be. And I was like, ah, but he went to Burning Man. I've never been, but that is everyone who wants you to fall into line's worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep. That and apparently drinking ayahuasca. There was some like Silicon Valley CEO that said it was his worst nightmare that his employees or his colleagues would go and drink ayahuasca because he knew that they would drop out of the corporate world.
That's so funny. So, this job I just started, it really came in kind of randomly for me, working at this ayahuasca retreat center,
Which
and
center is it, by the way?
Soltara.
I just
Mhm.
got hired by them also.
Wait, oh
Yeah.
my God. Wait,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well,
Are you
good
there
to,
right now?
yeah, yeah, I'm in Scarlet Valley.
Oh, I'm gonna be there in a few months.
Wait, for when?
Um, late October. I believe it's
Okay,
October.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. It's an amazing, amazing place to work for. We'll have to geek out on that later. Wow, it's so crazy how that happens. Um, oh, but so I was home in May, and at one point, my mom and my twin sister, they both were like individually, I'm so glad that you, because I originally work at a Iboga retreat center, like I'm so glad you don't work with ayahuasca. And I was like, I mean, I have and I do and I will. What do you mean? They're like, I don't know. I just think that people who do ayahuasca are just desperate. And I was like, well, I was desperate when I came to ayahuasca, but I was like, everyone comes to, I was desperate when I came to Iboga. We all come for different reasons. I was like, I'm curious, where is this coming from? Are you doing research? No, no, no. I just don't want you to start saying weird things. And I was like, lady, I already say weird things, but and then of
Yeah.
course I get this job a
Yeah.
week and a half later, and I was like, guess what?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So you're working at a marijuana farm, and then your next sort of breaking open. I mean, I guess it was more of a breaking down before you were broken open, but yeah, your next experience came through. So if you could share about that with your health.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the health stuff started coming later. I mean, once I moved up to Humboldt County, I was working on various farms and kind of just spending a different I was spending my time going to, yeah, different farms and events and just kind of hanging out in the community. And when I was up there, I actually met a woman from Spain. And this was actually the first time where I had met someone that could actually hear my story and think that I wasn't crazy. This was the first time like I had met someone who also had psychic abilities, who had also been through a lot of ups and downs, but she was like, "No, I don't think you're crazy, for what you've been through." And that really started to help me unravel again myself and, all these like walls I had built up around me against spirituality. I had stopped meditating. I had stopped like working with certain plants I had worked with in the past. Was really freaked out. And, that my therapist had told me, they had originally told me I should never smoke weed again. I should never drink alcohol, all these things. But yeah, I knew I couldn't follow those guidelines. I knew that I had to find my own way. And yeah, meeting this person also, yeah, she really helped me just kind of get back into touch with myself and my experiences and my own personal experience of reality.
And so what happened from that point after meeting her? So I guess you're starting to embrace and open up and just become I know for myself, after I had my psychic awakening, I was
Mhm.
married at the time and my ex was really triggered. He was actually an atheist when we first met. It's funny, one of my fellow facilitators is gay and he was talking about he felt called to share his coming out story, and it had me thinking of my coming out story as somebody who, yeah, with all these perceptions and abilities and all of that stuff. And that was really, really challenging for me, actually.
Yeah. I've heard of that crossover, of people coming out of the closet and then, also people with psychic abilities too. I mean, of course, extremely different, but some parallels for sure.
Mm.
And yeah, I had completely like gone back into the closet, shall we say, or like closed myself off from even talking about any of these things. And even just thinking about them within myself brought up a lot of fear. And I mean, meeting this person really helped me just unravel a lot of that and know it was okay and it can be normal and I can practice with these abilities again and it's safe. It can be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, let's jump to when your health started to fail you.
Yeah. So yeah, around this time I was in Humboldt. I was on a cannabis farm. I had multiple tick bites. I had large bullseye rashes. It was during COVID time. I was very freaked out of doctors and the medical system at the time. I did not take any antibiotics or do anything for the infections. The people who I was around were telling me, they didn't really know much about Lyme, and they were like, oh, if you actually have an infection, you'll get a fever, or your body will shut down in some way, and you'll know, and then you should see a doctor. But yeah, none of that happened. I had the rashes. The rashes went away, and I was pretty much fine for like 6 months. I then found out I was going to be a father, which was a bit unexpected, and that brought up a lot of stress and yeah, different things for me to navigate. And at that moment, I had a large flare up of different things in my body. I started to have a lot of chronic fatigue. I started to have a lot of dental infections. My gums started bleeding a lot and started having brain fog, some very bizarre symptoms. And just based on circumstances, what I was going through, I was figuring out how I could move over to Spain at the time. And again, during lockdown and all this, it was, yeah, very stressful. So I started treating myself a lot with herbs and I started working with combo. This was the first time I tried combo. And, these are the first times where I started doing fasting and things like that. So I started getting into all these things, is learning how I can support my health naturally without having to go into the medical system, which again, during COVID, it was a nightmare for me at least, to even consider talking to a doctor. Yeah.
Okay. How long did it take for you to start to stabilize? Because all of that sounds like, from my Chinese medicine lens, like that's all pretty serious and a really big challenge. I feel like brain fog is one of those things that it's so systemic that it's not like a quick fix. You have to really get deep, deep, deep and go through various methods of, well, we say draining dampness, but also making sure the spleen is intact, and it's a combination of detox and nourishing, and it's a really, really fine tuning. And yeah, you have to go through, honestly, a lot of extreme discomfort to get through that. So yeah, what for you turned the tides? And yeah.
Well, in the beginning, I mean, combo helped me a lot. Combo helped me a lot for sure. And like I mean, it was the first time doing combo. That kind of reset a lot for like a few months. And then again, just based on life circumstance with trying to figure everything out, I had tried to move to Spain. This was early COVID before testing or anything. So I had flights going to Spain. I got to the UK. I went to get on my connecting flight, could not get into Spain. You are banned. You cannot come in, sir. Europe is shut to Americans. And, I tried to explain I'm becoming a father. The mother is in Spain. I need to go get in there so I can be there for the birth. And they're like, no, there's nothing we can do. Yeah, it was very chaotic. So at that moment during lockdown and everything, I was looking where I could travel to. Europe was going into insane lockdown. I found a flight to Costa Rica for like 300 bucks. So I went there to kind of just sort everything out in my mind. I knew the lockdown was pretty light there. So yeah, I went there and I balanced myself out there a lot. I got back into kind of a grounded place where I was doing Qigong like every day. I was surfing almost every day. I was really getting into fasting and I was basically just living on fruit for a long time, being a lot in the sun. I was feeling amazing. It was like in that period, that was probably one of like the biggest highlights of my life. I mean, there's a lot of stress going on, with the world and becoming a father, but I felt so good in that moment. And yeah, so was finding my way with all of those things.
Wow, that's so cool. That's a pretty wonderful turn of events that could have been real shitty.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing my best, I was navigating it, but luckily I did find my way to Costa Rica for a
So
bit.
so was it out in Costa Rica and during that time where you on your website you share about this ayahuasca ceremony where you received a really important message about what was happening for you and where it was guiding you towards?
That was not the moment when I had the ayahuasca, but at that moment, when I was living that life, doing the Qigong, I had a place on the beach. It was like $300 a month US, and like it was my dream life, basically. The exact life, just surfer's paradise. It was incredible. And there was one day where I was actually going back home after being in town, and I felt this message come in really clearly. And the message was meditate for 4 hours. And I just kept hearing that repeat over and over. Meditate for 4 hours. Meditate for 4. And I'm like, 4 hours? That's a long time to meditate. And the message was very clear. It was like, you need to meditate for 4 hours. You need to. And I'm like, okay, okay, I'm gonna go and meditate. And I got back home. I go in my house. I lie down on my bed. I started doing really long, slow, deep breathing, huge inhales, holding my breath, huge exhales, holding my breath, and just getting really deep into a trance. And I got myself into this space of the, body asleep, mind awake. I was in a really deep trance, and there was suddenly like a large portal that opened up in the corner of my room. I saw this golden flash of energy and this massive portal open up. And I saw this angel come through, Archangel Gabriel, come in like literally what you could imagine out of a movie, like golden armor, massive wings, a huge staff, and came and kneeled next to me on the bed. And he has just said, like, Will, this is your dream life. We know it's your dream life, but you need to get over to Spain. You need to leave everything behind. You need to make this journey, and it's not going to be easy. You're not going to know how you're going to get over there. It's going to seem impossible, but you just have to go, and it'll be worth it. Your life will be much better on the other end, and this is important, so you got to go. And I fell back into a trance. I felt like I was in this dream space for probably, it felt like a full day, honestly. And then I woke up and it was pouring rain outside, and I was like, okay, I have to go. I have to go. And yeah, so that's when I started making my way over into Spain.
Shit. Wow, that's a lot of trust. Was the path to Spain really tough?
Well, yeah, I'd already been denied once, so I
Yeah.
tried to get in and they were like, no. And then it was even harder lockdown now. Like now you needed testing, vaccines were coming out, and I was like, no way I'm getting a vaccine. I didn't even want to do testing. And I didn't know what to do. So in the past, when I was actually much younger as well, part of some of my travels, I was working on this guy's farm in Hawaii. And he was a huge conspiracy theorist. He knew about all the conspiracies, and this was about 2017. He knew all these things, like things I had learned about, the banking system, all the classic things, fluoride in the water, 9/11, blah blah blah, all this stuff I'd heard many stories about. And yeah, he was like, "Do you want to know what they're doing next?" And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "They're going to create a massive world pandemic and they're going to blame it on an infection so they can force vaccines onto people. They're going to close down all the countries. They're going to make it extremely difficult to travel and it's going to become like a global shutdown." And he was telling me all of these things. And then he was actually giving me some really practical information on what I could do. And he was like, one of the best things you can learn to do is learn how to sail a boat. Because if they go into lockdown, you're not going to be able to get anywhere if you need gasoline. But if you can learn how to sail a boat, you can go anywhere you want. So that moment after I had this message from Archangel Gabriel and everything, and I knew I was not going to be able to fly, I thought at the time, I actually made my way into Panama on foot. And I made my way over to the Panama Canal, and I was actually looking for people who had private catamarans and boats that I could possibly hitch a ride with back over to Europe, to the Mediterranean.
So you sailed across the Atlantic like our ancestors did?
I did not. I didn't find a
Okay.
boat. That was
Okay.
gonna that was going to make it. But I did live in Panama for like about a month. And I had some wild experiences there. I was living in this like bay right near the Panama Canal, 30 minutes away from the canal, and it was a bay and they had so it was also some very weird stuff out of like a movie. There was this old dilapidated research facility from the University of Florida where they were doing research on monkeys like 20 years ago and all the monkeys escaped and it was in this like bay and there it was like this legit old pirate bay. The bay next to it was the main port where they were sending all the gold back to Spain and Portugal and yeah, so I lived there for a month and was just trying to figure out how I could get a boat. It didn't work out. I made my way back to Panama City and I did tons of research and figured out I could fly to Albania on a flight with no requirements, nothing. They were just letting anyone in. So that's what I did. I flew over there.
And then you made your way to Spain through Albania.
Yep, got to Albania, had no idea what to do next. I just kept like trusting and following guidance, and I made my way to the port town. I was just talking to all these people, and they were like, you can just get on a ferry to Italy, and they won't check your papers until you're in Italy. And once you're there, then you're there. It's going to be harder to deny you once you're already there. So I did that. I made my way over on a boat, and then finessed my way through the customs just by telling them my situation and then trained, bussed, and then boated again to get to Ibiza.
Wow. How old is your daughter now that she must be 5 or 6?
She is 5. Yeah, she's
Wow.
5.
What an incredible story for her to understand what her dad's willing to go through just to get to her.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge adventure and I'm glad I made it. It was like 3 months before the birth and yeah, it was definitely well worth the journey for sure.
So other than your daughter and yeah, her mother waiting for you in Spain, what else was waiting for you there?
Well, yeah, I mean, a new life. I mean, so I moved over. My daughter was born. I started living here, and up until this point, I was working on the cannabis farms. Found out I was going to be becoming a dad. It was COVID. I didn't really know what I was going to do, so I had really started leaning into the qigong at the time. Really leaning into that, just also as a way of me balancing my nervous system and just really, like grounding and building up my energy and protecting myself psychically. And then really started pursuing that also as a way to make money. And then I also got into massage at the time. I started doing massage courses here in Ibiza and yeah, just really started stepping into a lot of my power as a father and, earning money and all these different things. And it's been rapid, accelerated growth. I mean, people say that just the island of Ibiza will do that to you if you live here. But yeah, I mean, also with the circumstances as well.
Hmm. So at what point how did you get into what you do? I mean, I know that, like all of this is what you do now.
Right.
But like from how I know you is through our mutual friend Troy. You know, he told me like this guy's the detox guy, as well as the parasite guy. So how did you from there get to this point?
Right. So I was yeah, again, I was living on this island. I was doing the massage and the qigong, and I just kind of was having these symptoms come up that were just strange, and I didn't know where they were coming from. And yeah, I had this chronic fatigue and this kind of inflammation in my gums that wasn't going away. And I was doing my best to kind of take herbs on my own, and it just I wasn't really getting the support I needed. And then I channeled the message I really needed to go and speak with someone. I just heard the message like go and seek a doctor. Like you need help. And I went and found a doctor locally. I told her my story, and she was like, "Okay, it kind of sounds like you have Lyme," but she was like, "Where are you from?" California. And she's like, "Okay, they don't have Lyme there. So you just have candida and mold exposure," which is not true. There's Lyme everywhere. But yeah, so I started working on my health. I started researching all this stuff. I was doing the treatments for the mold and the candida. I wasn't getting better, and I just started diving into research. What can I do? And I found all these modalities. One of them was frequency therapy. I learned about parasite cleansing. I really just started dedicating myself to studying all these things just because also, becoming a father, stepping into all this power, I'm like, I need to be healthy. I need to really take care of myself now. And I can also pursue these things. They excited me. I was fascinated by learning about frequencies and the herbs and combo and all these things. And yeah, I was getting some benefit, was feeling some, difficulty, kind of was up and down for a while. And yeah, it wasn't until about a year and a half after living in Ibiza, I went back to California and I was stepping more into my role. I was like, I need to go to school. I moved to San Diego to pursue acupuncture. And when I was in San Diego, I moved actually 3 blocks from a Lyme specialist and I went to go see her, told her my story. She's like, I'm almost positive that you have Lyme based on everything you're telling me. Did some tests, sure enough, had the three B's of Lyme, as they call them, Bartonella, Borrelia, and Babesia. And then again, yeah, just started really leaning into the research because also the doctor who told me I have these infections, she was like, oh, most people deal with this for life. And, hearing that, I'm just like, okay, nope. There is no way I'm going to be dealing with this for life. I was 24 at the time, I think. No, 25 at the time. And I'm like, I'm not, no, no. So yeah, I just have really delved into the research to figure out how I could uncover these things. And it was around this time it was before the diagnosis, actually few months prior, where I had my first ayahuasca ceremony. And again, I was just having all these strange health symptoms popping up. And in the ceremony, I just was like, what is going on? What's happening to my body? I'm doing the herbs, I'm doing the keto diet. Like, why am I feeling this way? And I had this very clear message that was, you are in a 4-year cycle of death and rebirth. Your body is going to break down so that you can learn to become disciplined and eliminate all the accumulated toxins, all the medications, all the heavy metals, all the substances, etc. All of it, you're going to have to learn how to detox these things, clean your body out, learn all the ways of holistic healing, and you're going to gain equipment, and then you are going to go out and teach other people and help other people how to do these same things.
So how did that change your whole existence within it? Like did it relieve a lot of the suffering of all the symptoms? Were you kind of like switched on like, all right, let's go? Or did you have almost like a distrust or grieving phase from that point?
I mean, it was pretty intense message to receive. I mean, and like a part of the message was also that it would be very difficult and that I would need to just keep going. And the message was just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And that echoed for a while like that. And I'm like, oh my God. what am I going to go through, because she was like, it's going to be death and rebirth, and it's going to be 4 years. And she was like, it's going to be hard, but just keep going. And I mean, hearing that, yeah, it was definitely like, whoa. I felt like I'd already been through so much. But it was also very exciting, to hear that I'm gonna like learn all these things and begin to help other people and have these technologies. And I mean, that was very exciting also.
It's a big thing to sign up for as a soul. It's very specific.
Yeah, very specific, very specific. But I mean, luckily I've had these messages that have come through with ayahuasca, that first ceremony, and also with the mother of the woman that I was dating before. Yeah, with all of the messages she told me about myself and my life, I mean, she told me extremely specific information that I'm still witnessing 10 years after that reading. Like, so I'm still witnessing many of the things very accurately unfold in my life, which
That's
is,
so
yeah.
fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I was extremely blessed to receive. I thank her in prayers all the time. She's passed, but yeah, I thank her
Mm.
all the time.
Mm. So, from your perspective, we could talk about detox from a physiological level, but in your experience and from this unique lens that you have, this integrated lens of medicine and Western, Eastern, and this your spirituality, what would you say even detox is?
I mean, detoxification on like a very basic level is just removing the bad, which it doesn't have to be physical. I mean, it can be thoughts, it could be spiritual entities, it could be emotions, it could be relationships, it could be parasites, like physical parasite. I mean, so many different things, but basically it just means moving the bad out of your body and your life.
And in your experience, what are some of the ways that people show up and come to you where they're overburdened with toxins? How would you kind of describe, I know that it's so nuanced, but like how those show up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people now come to me, because normally if people have health problems, they go to a doctor first, right? And then after a while of having a lot of issues, they look for alternative practitioners, which I would be considered an alternative practitioner. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people who have extreme amounts of emotional stress, past trauma. They might not have treated their bodies well with alcohol or drugs or food or things like that. And they have a large range of things going on, not only in their body, chronic fatigue, the bloating, brain fog, those are like really classic things I see in a lot of people. But just a lot of stress. And then also a lot of people like really out of alignment of what they want to be doing and what their path is in life. And, when you go and see a doctor with these things, they just look at blood tests and they're like, okay, well, here, do this medication, or a lot of even like herbalists, they use herbs like medications where they're just like, okay, take these herbs. And then, and a lot of people don't get better from just like swallowing a pill, even if it is an herb.
Yeah, one of my low-key pet peeves is people being like, yeah, I'm drinking this detox tea and this milk thistle because the doctor said I'm full of toxins. And I was like,
Yeah.
but your body, your energetic pathway has a unique quality and an herb has a unique quality. So is there a symbiosis happening or are you just popping pills mindlessly?
Yeah. I mean, we've all grown up in the Western world of this idea of you have a problem, you fix it. And if it's a medical problem, there's a pill or there's an injection for it. And yeah, I mean, it's not always that simple.
What are some of the mistakes that you see people make when they finally decided to come to you and they told you, like their symptoms and what they've been trying to do to manage it, and also considering your experience. I mean, I guess we could see it from the lens that there are no mistakes, but yeah, what are some of the misconceptions and mistakes people come to you with?
I mean, a lot of different things. I mean, one thing I've been seeing in a lot of people is people don't know what food to eat. which is so strange. Like humans are the only beings on the earth which don't know what to eat. And there's so many different opinions on what to eat. I mean, a lot of people go carnivore, which, for some people that helps. A lot of people go alkaline, which for some people that helps. But I see that as a mistake. Like I think when people go too excessively alkaline, they just want to be alkaline, alkaline, alkaline all the time. That's definitely a big mistake that I see a lot of people making.
So would you say just the extreme and trying to tip the scale too far?
Yeah, I definitely would agree. Like the extremes, a lot of people are having a lot of difficulties with these days.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so when someone comes to you, what are some of the first things that you address? Are you working with baby steps, big steps, or is it more nuanced than that?
I think it's always nuanced. I mean, it always depends on the individual. So if someone is like super disciplined, they're already taking supplements, they go to the gym or whatever, someone like that, they can handle more than someone maybe eating a typical American diet who's not exercising. They've never tried cleansing or even taking an herb. So I always meet people where they're at, but whatever pace feels comfortable for them. I like to see people get better, not just like have a huge crash or on the other end, like not have any improvement. And ideally, people should be able to take a step-by-step path so they can actually find relief from whatever they're experiencing.
You mentioned colon hydrotherapy. That was actually the thing that took me. I was doing acupuncture and herbs to help with. I was having a lot of allergic reactions to everything I ate. Of course, I was
Mhm.
having, spiritual opening and exploration that helped too. But it was the colon hydrotherapy that took me from here to all the way over here. I remember one time after doing 3 or 4 sessions within 2 to 3 months. I accidentally ate a food that I would normally have a violent allergic reaction to, and I was at dinner and I was like, let's just say nothing. Let's observe the panic and then let's see what happens. And I was like, shit, I didn't have a reaction. So yeah, are there any like for me in my book, I think everyone at least once in their life would benefit from 1 to 2 sessions of colon hydrotherapy. But yeah, what are some modalities that you feel like everyone should partake in to kind of keep their system moving?
I would agree colon hydrotherapy is amazing. I mean, if you don't want to go do a colonic, even at-home enemas are good, or there's other ways to flush the intestines, but some way flushing the intestines, I would say is super important. I think actually fasting to some degree, based on the individual and what they can handle, I think everyone should try that at some point. Many old religions would actually recommend weekly fasts for 24, 36 hours weekly, and then also longer term fasts, for people who don't feel like they could handle a water fast. I would say most people, you can actually handle much more than what you think. But if you couldn't handle a water fast, then a juice cleanse, or even just eating a mono fruit diet, one type of fruit for like a period of time. I think, working with some sort of cleanse or fast, everyone should try at some point in their life. With intention, intentionally deciding to stop eating food or to take a break from your regular diet. Everyone could really benefit from that.
I know that a lot of people, their main source resource is social media, and I see how it causes more misconceptions, misinformation, more harm than good. And similar to you, my journey has been throwing and see what sticks and researching. Is there a resource that feels worth mentioning for somebody who like, I mean, I've been balling on a budget for years as a student, and then now leaving, I finally got last year got like a really good paying job at a clinic. And
Mm.
then life was like, you're gonna move to Costa Rica. Yeah, balling on a budget has been my vibe for a while. And so I really can resonate and appreciate people in that space. So yeah, is there any resource that feels worth mentioning for people that are in that space or maybe wanting to open up to the world of detoxification?
That is a very good question. I am always working on myself, like putting out resources for people. I have some free resources on my website. I really also like the school of evolutionary herbalism with Sage Apampam. He has tons of YouTube videos out there and really, really, really amazing information and really balanced information. He looks at a lot of old traditional systems like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, Western herbalism, and he gives a really good, grounded explanation of herbs and why they're different from pharmaceuticals and how you can work with them and which ones you should work with and how they relate to planets and very, very amazing information from him.
That's amazing. I'm going to be looking into that. That was one of my biggest gripes with my program was it was just a sole focus on Chinese herbs and their Chinese
Yeah.
name. And I was
Mhm.
like, but what about the Latin name? What about, like I live in a Western world, so I'm always looking for resources like that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thank from me to you, thanks for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Before I get to my closing questions, is there anything else that feels worth mentioning about your story, your work, anything that we've discussed here?
That's a good question. I feel like, yeah, with my work and with my story and all of these things, it's been a big path of my own personal evolution. And, I think that, you know, in humanity, we're in a massive point of evolution right now. Everyone, of course, in their own personal lives always is going through evolution, but our species as a whole is going through a massive upgrade. And it's very rocky and it's very unsettling at times, but this process will be worth it for sure. And if we can really align ourselves with the truth of what it is to be a human and follow the ancient ways of indigenous people and traditional practices like Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, all these really amazing, strong pillars that have held humanity for so long, and then incorporate that into our evolution and into our modern lives. I think that that is crucial at this point of time, that we can really embrace our humanity and not give ourselves away to some of these new influences that are coming in, like AI, and not to have fear of it, but learn how to use these things and integrate them into our lives with good boundaries.
Hmm. So one of my closing questions is so my podcast is called The School of Whispers. It
Mm.
kind of came when I went to a cabin, my first solo trip, and in the middle of the night I just was woken up by a voice that was saying School of Whispers, School of Whispers, and I was like, is that what I'm in? And I realized we're all in it. And the
Yeah.
whispers come through the body, through the heart, through spirit, through nature, through ancient wisdom traditions. So if you could share, if somebody is listening and they're in the beginning of their own school of whispers, if you could share some pearls, some wisdom that, yeah, you wish you could have heard when you were in the beginning of your school of listening.
hmm I would say, yeah, I mean, if you're in the school of whispers, then listen and listen with discernment, that listen to the whispers and let them be just whispers. I mean, they might be guiding you to the truth, they might be guiding you towards illusion, but always follow your heart's truth and be curious, be open, and be excited. I mean, if you're in the school of whispers, that's amazing. That's awesome. You're not crazy because the world is crazy. And if you are going crazy, then you're actually becoming sane. You are insane. You're inside of sanity.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah to that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, fam.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story and just continuing on the path. I had this moment in ceremony last night where I really wanted to learn about power and humility. And I was looking at the moon and I got the lesson of that's what leadership is. It's the moon rises every night and shows up and glows, and whether it's full or new or empty, it's always full. It's just a game of illusion and a game of power. And so yeah, thank you for continuously showing up with presence and not letting what other people tell you how you think you should be. Yeah, and just following your own path.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but the more I step into myself and my power, my authenticity, my sovereignty, then the easier it gets.
Mhm. So my last question is, how can people find you if they want to work with you? What are some of your offerings that you have right now?
That you can find me on Instagram at will.wellness. You can go to my website. It's in the link in my Instagram, but it's also advancemywellness.com. And I offer personalized coaching for not only detox, but looking at the mind and subconscious belief, helping people move towards their true path and their purpose, helping them to wake up from the matrix and really step into their God-given life and their abilities and all the joy that, we all should be able to receive as humans.
Mm. By the way, your logo is really sick. Yeah, good job
Yeah,
on that one. Yeah.
thank you. It is a crop circle.
Oh, okay. That's why I
Like
knew
I can't
that's
I can't I can't claim the origins are from me.
okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everyone, you'll find his information in link in bio, just or the wherever you're on YouTube, description, whatever. Thank you again, Will. And I'm looking forward to re-listening to this one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well done on making it all the way to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to press all the buttons that show your gratitude, whether that's subscribing, liking, sending to a friend, or leaving a review. Again, if you would like to work with Will, you can find his information in the show notes. And if you would like to work with myself, you can also find my information in the show notes. All right, my friend, that's it from me. Until next time.